Recording in progress.
Let's begin.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Lost Valley Sanitary District to order. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Borstein,
Yes.
Gaffney,
Present.
Kelly,
Yes.
Megs, here, Scylla, here, all present, thank you.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. I would like to postpone item 11, or just pull it to the agenda.
Okay.
And then any other. Are we going to get a presentation from Myra?
He's
Yeah.
here. He is
Oh, he's
here.
going to be, oh, good, he's on there, so. Okay. And we might want to move Myra after forward. So, okay, and that one is item 1.
What is it going to be?
Jeff is going to present.
Okay. Okay.
And President Gaffney, I also point out, Riley Hurd is here for item 8E, in case you're interested in pulling that item off.
Okay, so that's
For discussion.
8D. No, 8E, yeah. Okay, so Bradley's is going to be shorter, so let's have 8E. And then we'll do.
Can we put 8E before 5?
Yeah. But no, before, no,
Before 9.
no, 8E is a no. Okay.
Well, 8E goes 8E goes before 9. I'm saying we're moving it up.
Well, we're moving it out of the head of committee reports and everything else.
So that'd be after 4.
Yes.
Okay.
And before 9.
Don't drive me crazy.
So you're fine. Motion.
Okay. Moving on. I shall move the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Item 3, open time for public today's items not on the agenda or for future agendas. Do we have any public? Clerk of the board?
I see no public, President Gaffney.
No, thank you. Okay. Number 4. Small Collection System of the Year Award for the presentation is CWE President Jeff Tucker.
One of the things I really like about this is that CWA is even though there's 10,000 members in the association, it's still small. I still come to these events and I end up knowing lots of people in the room. I think it speaks to our profession as well. I think the camaraderie, and then strangely enough, I even know Ira. And I know Corey. I mean, yeah, it's definitely one of those things. Not related to this presentation, I just also want to thank Corey. He helped me with a hiring that I did a couple months ago. He's on the interview panel and really helped me a lot.
Okay.
And so I really appreciate Corey for the work that you helped me out with. Thank you. But so what I'm here though today is related to the collection system of the year award from CWEA. So my name is Jeff Tucker. I'm the CWEA past president. I was president for this past year. I stopped being president about 3 weeks ago. Spent the last year kind of touring the state, seeing a lot of our member associations, meeting our members, going to boards like this one, and kind of talking about what CWEA does. Our mission really is to protect public health and the environment. It's the same exact mission that you have. We do it through the education, certification, and advocacy of our members. We do have about 10,000 members in CWEA, and we're a member association of the Water Environment Federation. So WEF is there's 40 member associations that are part of WEF, and California by far is the largest and I think best association. So with that, getting this award is not easy. This is something this award is one of the most prized awards that we give out on an annual basis. We make, so it's the applications are written by staff. And they come in, we have a full selection committee at the local section level. There are 17 local sections in the state of California. Here we're a member of the Redwood Empire. I am a member of Redwood. Have been for years, Redwood Empires. So they go through that process, the application, so you went to the local level, and at the local level, you can forward it up to the state level where you compete against the 16 other local sections. So it's a very time-consuming process for the staff to do these applications, but they're rich with information that the committees then have the ability to really determine who really is the best of the best within these collection systems throughout the entire state. I just want to point out some of the noted accomplishments in your application. You probably know about these things already, but the things that really impressed us were your easement initiative that you've had, the education efforts that you went through to let the folks know through the flyers, through the interactive map on your website, helping people understand what easements are and how important it is to maintain them is incredibly vital to the success of the collection system. It's a great program. We were really impressed with that. Also impressed that you took the next step, which goes into implementation. So you're actually putting money into removing vegetation, building hardscape, doing things necessary for the long-term maintenance of those easements. We don't see a whole lot of agencies that proactive in terms of managing their sewer easements. And so as a district, you really should be commended for that. We were also very impressed looking at the application at the culture of performance that you have here. It was the culture-wise training specifically that popped out to us. It's very work-focused training, but it's really about how to create a high performance culture. And it's very clear from the work and the stats and the things that we see within the application that the staff and the leadership among all of you is really dedicated to making sure that your employees are the best trained, best equipped, and best able to serve the public. So for that, actually, as a member of CWEA, I would like to thank you as a board for the efforts and energy that for promoting these sorts of things with staff, encouraging them to apply to these awards. And with that, I will congratulate the Ross Valley Sanitary District for Collection System of the Year Award in the small category, which is up to 249 miles. Sorry.
Thank you very much. You know, I know about Sealy. It's the organization that trains all of all the workers and the staff. It's a fabulous organization. And I think that the EPA had to appoint you had to be approved by the EPA to do that. Isn't that the way it works?
Not exactly. Not me, Sally. I was actually elected by the
Not you, no. Well, I was kind of talking about this, about seaweed, you know, they had to be appointed and they were approved.
I believe it was the CWEA was actually around a lot longer before even the EPA it was in existence.
Oh,
Yeah, but we certainly work hand in hand with the regional boards and with the EPA on a lot of programming, like for instance, the new regional WDR, the new general order that came out. CWEA has been working hand in hand with the state and developing education programs, helping get the information out on how to implement the new regulations. So we see the state and by extension, the EPA and the federal government as partners in the work that we do and trying to make sure that we're all working together toward that same goal.
yeah, well, it means a lot to us.
It does.
This your organization appointed us Collection System of the Year. And I would like to thank our staff.
Oh, yeah.
All the way, management, audit, lawyer, clerk, operations manager, and management analyst, something like that.
Money.
Really, it's fabulous. And I was very proud too of the Ross Valley Way program, which you mentioned. So I think it's fabulous. It was quite an honor. And we really thank you, staff.
Yeah, I'd also add,
Board too.
you said that it was hard to win this award. It's really hard for this organization to win this award. You probably don't know, but looking back 10 years ago, this organization was not where it was at all today. The general manager and the previous general manager are fabulous. I'll leave it at that. But everything changed and the board changed and we're proud of it. We're also very proud of the second place award in transparency. I don't know if you know about that. So we were given second place for transparency for the commercials we put on the local Comcast.
Oh, right.
On 5 different topics.
Right.
And organized the outreach. The number of agencies to go in.
The plan at the beginning was do it for 3 months and then make CMSA join us, and then make North and Motto and every now, all of them are hanging, and we can do it forever.
Fantastic.
And in fact, we get along with them so well, we wanted our Zoom meetings, our new building isn't ready, so CMSA is letting us have our meetings here until we're ready, and so we're getting along with our other agencies. Jack.
I was something to hear. I was surprised. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff.
All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate your having me here tonight. And I'd love to be able to come and talk about the awards because they're some of the, especially this one and the operations one are really the two most sought after awards. A lot of effort gets put into them, and I know that the crews are really excited when they win them. So I made this.
No, it reflects on them.
It does.
So thank
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
John.
Thanks for having me.
Really nice to see you.
And we get a sign and a plaque.
Yes, thank
That should be
you.
on a flagpole.
It's gonna be in the entryway of the new building.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
That was nice.
now we're gonna go to 8E. And that's the
Yeah.
okay, approved property owner interest letter to city of planning division.
So I get to introduce this and yes, our land use council Riley Hurd is available to provide some details on the process going on with the city of Larkspur. You've been briefed now and then by me and my monthly report about the pace of the city of Larkspur general plan update with its housing element. And as I noted in the staff report on this item, the city of Larkspur submitted their housing element to the State Housing and Community Development Department, HCD, for approval. And they received written comments on that housing element submittal earlier this month. And the comments had reference to Larkspur landing property owned by the district. And so we worked with Riley to put together this proposed letter showing a property owner interest in development. We structured it consistent with other correspondence that we've given to the city of Larkspur Planning Division. And they're all attached to this item for your reference. So hopefully you had a chance to review that and check consistency with the message that you've been providing along the way. And wanted to open up any questions, but certainly allow Riley to provide some additional insight into what's going on, where we are in that process for the city of Larkspur's housing element approval.
Sure. Thank you, Steve, and good evening, members of the board. It's nice to see you again. Been a little bit. Keying off of what Steve said, Larkspur, like all the other municipalities in Marin, is updating its housing element, and also like all of the other municipalities, after submitting its first draft, it received a letter from HCD asking for modifications. That's not unusual. This is a very strict cycle, and HCD is going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. And one of the key things that HCD looks for when a city proposes sites is a criteria called likelihood to develop. In other words, they want to be sure that some of the past practices, which were to include sites that were unlikely to develop, which is why we didn't have a lot of housing production, weren't going on. So they're really diving into these sites. And as you know, the district's site at Larkspur Landing was included in the housing element, and HCD wrote to the city and they said, we see that this property is broken up into two parcels and that one appears to be intended for a sanitary district office and the other has an existing housing entitlement already on it, which is something I've discussed at length with this board more than once now about the status of those entitlements. And so the state said, without more information, we can't accept this property at the unit count that you are proposing. So clearly, the state was unaware of the shift in the district's needs, the fact that you have found a different location for your district office, and also that because of that, and because of the time that's gone by with regards to the existing entitlements, now the entirety of the property, save for the small pump station, is available for development, since you won't be putting a district office there. And also, times have changed a bit in regards to what the layout would be, what the density might be. And so one of the things that HCD will accept in that likelihood to develop criteria is an ownership interest letter. And I've prepared this to help a couple other jurisdictions. I've prepared letters like these to explain that, yes, in fact, the district does have an interest or an open interest in developing this property, or teaming up with someone for development, or making it available for development. No, we don't need the land for a district office anymore. And therefore, a new vision for the property is realistic, and that interest can help move the needle with HCD and have them count the property at the density that's being proposed, which is significantly more beneficial for the district than the entitlements that are on the property today. So the letter is really just a combination of statements made in previous letters to the city, but it's kind of coalesced into one, and contains that proactive statement of interest that HCD looks for when considering a site. So that's the idea, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Board members, any questions?
Well, the 126 is the previously approved 126 unit development is now out there, and the district intends to explore developments of the entirety of the site with a project more in line with new general plans designation. What does that mean in terms of parcels or units?
So the city chose to assume 320 units at the property in its housing element. That does fit within the new MU1 general plan designation density. But that density that's in the MU1 is a range. So you're not, this in no way, locks you into any particular number of units. But that is what we were referencing in that, is the density range contained in the new MU1.
These are not individual houses, but like complex and some houses. Is that what it is?
There is no
And
well, there's definitely no plan for anything like that. But to answer your question more directly, that level of units or density would not be able to be achieved with, for example, single family homes.
understood.
Any other questions? Okay, one is, we're writing the letter to the city and not to the HTC.
Two letters.
So,
No, I'm sorry. The second letter is Mary's from here.
pardon me?
The second letter is Mary's from here. Yeah.
We got it.
Why are we saying to say
Yeah, we're sending it to the city and not to the
states?
Yeah, so the city serves as the liaison with HCD, who typically doesn't take or work, directly with property owners per se. So what the city's planning director, Elise Simonian, will do is, when the city submits a response to HCD's letter, which will come in the form of an updated red line or track changes housing element, right? Because there are many, many, many other issues that HGD raised with their housing element, all of which need to be addressed. Then they will provide our letter to HCD as support for why it can be counted at the density that's being proposed. So that's why we wrote it to the city.
Okay, and then the other question, we don't mention that we requested a change, or we suggested to the city to request a change in zoning. As that, you don't think we need that?
So,
Did you understand what I was trying to say?
yeah, I think that's a point well taken. You know, I think we were trying to be as neutral as possible, to be honest, in this letter. But it is true that you know, with board approval, we wrote to the city during the general plan update process and said, hey, we need a better general plan designation that allows for a little more flexibility, recognizes that the district office has moved, and we were, you know, kind of an active participant in that. So I see your point in that also supports the concept of owner interest, right? Like, we're the ones who requested the change in the first place, and it wasn't because we didn't intend to execute on it in some way. So you know, I'm certainly open to that edit if it's the direction from the board.
If it's a good idea, yes. You know, in your opinion.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay, and then what was the last thing? The city wants us to write this letter, is that true?
Yes, so I received direct correspondence from the city's planning director asking us to participate to bolster their ability to try to count this site, because Larkspur, like every other city, has been assigned you know, it's a Herculean task to find this many units in these cities. I mean, they 10x these cities compared to ever before. So we are a very important site in Larkspur's calculus.
And then my last question is, when is Larkspur going to get this out? What do you think?
Yeah.
When are they going to amend their application?
So, you know, they are running behind. The deadline was December 31st of 2022. Right now, you know, they got something in, but they need to keep going. So my guess is that they want to get this over the finish line in the next few months, because there are repercussions to being out of compliance with the housing element requirements. So far, I don't think any of those have come home to roost for the city, but they could. So I know that they're eager to move forward.
Board, any more questions?
I have a couple.
Pamela.
So saying that, I mean, there are like 4, 5 cities right now being sued. Fairfax is one of them. I live there. And anyway, I'm just bringing that up. The other question I have is this third paragraph about the general plans update process. You mentioned the additional density. First of all, I'd like to know, how did you come about with additional density? Why do you have additional density? Are we going beyond? I know you said 320. Well, the density range there, but I'm curious on how that morphed. And then I have another question after that.
Yeah, that's a great question. The way we came about the additional density was the general plan designation for the property was changed. So it used to be split up actually into 3 different general plan designations, including public facilities, open space, and residential. And they decided to, for the first time, create a mixed use land use designation in their general plan and apply it to the district property. And that's actually the only property with that designation. And the MU1 land use designation has a significantly higher density range than the previous residential designation that was applied to the property. And it's now applied to a majority of the site, as opposed to previously when it was applied only to one chunk, because the northern chunk was reserved for the district offices. So you got more density in two ways, higher units per acre and more acres.
Okay, so then my next question is, so is there a planner or a person involved who's designing all of this?
No project has been designed for this property, just to be clear, but the city has hired a third-party consultant to craft their housing element and associated objective standards, rezonings, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I guess my concern is in the past, there was other issues that were being planned, like possibly community center, hotel, et cetera, and the affordability variable too, about how many affordable. And I don't, unless I didn't see any of that here. So is that, did you wipe the slate clean? Is that what happened? And we're starting all over?
No, I don't think so. This doesn't remove any optionality for the district as to what to do with the property. Nobody's required to build housing if they're in the housing element. It's actually one of the more misunderstood things. I see people coming to meetings and they're pounding the table and saying, take my property off the list. And I was like, oh, I'd love to be able to help you so you could understand that that's just free optionality that's being given to you. And if you want to keep it a shopping center or make it a park, there's no rule against that. Yeah, it doesn't require the construction of anything.
I guess maybe this is just thinking back. We're sort of left out in a way. I mean, it would be really nice to have their planning director come to one of our meetings or have some kind of open dialogue about what they're thinking, what they're planning. I mean, it is our land. What do you think about that?
So I will say I've had an open dialogue on the district's behalf with the planner. Including the consultants and everyone else. But I think it's kind of important to note that they're not planning anything for your land. They're just giving you the ability to do housing at a pretty generous density if that's the route you wanted to go. So it's not like they're planning, designing what you have to do or saying what you have to do. But so I just want to throw that out there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? So we could vote on this right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, just we can do the whole consent.
yeah, so I'll move this one. Then we offer,
Would you want to?
but I want to make a change. I want to include that change.
Well, we're not on the consent calendar. That's, I was saying we could just approve this one. Right now.
Oh, fine, okay. So
It's probably that you can pull that piece out, so you can vote on that, and then when you come to the consent calendar, it's everything but.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll move that we authorize the board president in coordination with legal counsel to issue the attached letter to the city of Larkspur Planning Division. And if Riley and consider it important to make that change, then we discuss.
Yeah, I would say that if, Riley, you think that change is useful, that would be, if you think it's worth it, that would be the motion I would make.
Yeah.
Yeah, if your goal is to keep this density for the site, then that change is useful.
Okay, so I'm with
With that
that
change, I knew that was.
and with that,
Can I clarify one thing? If we changed our minds on the density, we could do that too.
We haven't picked a density yet.
So I thought,
We haven't picked anything. It's not designed yet.
Yeah,
It's just flexible.
yeah. The only thing I will say is the MU1 has a density range. Okay, so it has a minimum and a maximum, and you can. If you choose to do housing on a portion or all of the property, then you just need to be in that range of units per acre.
Okay, so we've got a first and a second.
Yes, I did second.
Any other comment? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. I think it was unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, great to see you guys.
Thanks, Riley.
Bye-bye.
I think it's very useful that he's there watching this for us, because we don't really know what's, you know what I mean?
And they made up a designation for us, right? I mean, he said we're the only one that's mixed use. And
That's my understanding.
I'm surprised the city didn't know that. Okay, let's see, we've done the small collection system of the year. award. Oh, yeah, moving on. Oh, wait, let's go to Marin.
Repeating.
And it's number 9. That's the consideration of adopting the district's defined benefit payment plan and OPEB valuation reports.
Very good, yes, and then I'll ask Assistant Town Manager Newhouse to introduce the item.
Great, thank you very much. As the board is aware, the staff presents every year the liability for both its OPEB and other post-employment benefits and its pension liabilities in the form of these reports, which are quite lengthy, and as observed by the Finance Committee, maybe it might be more useful in the future presentation to link to the reports online rather than producing these in the paper format. So staff recognizes that as a good suggestion from the Finance Committee. So the valuation reports from CalPERS, as well as the summary reports from Govinvest, are included as attachments. In the staff report, there's a brief snapshot of each of the performances for pension and for OPEB prepared by Corey, our finance supervisor. So I'd like to recognize him for that work. And then to highlight that the reports are dated 2022 for the measurement of fiscal year 2021, which I know is sometimes a little bit confounding because it's now 2023. So it's really a look back. And the good news is that the look back was actually a very good year in 2021. We had a decrease in our net pension liabilities and a decrease in our net OPEB liabilities because at that time there were very high investment rates of return. So today, in addition to accepting the reports that are being presented to you, we'd also like some discussion and direction on the future investment strategies for these Section 115 trusts, the SEP and the CERT that the board is familiar with, and paying down our unfunded liabilities. So with that, I will turn it over to Ira Summer, who is here with a PowerPoint presentation, who will most beautifully summarize the content in these reports and provide some additional information to the board for discussion and direction on future investment strategies. So with that, Ira, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to come in through Zoom this time rather than fighting traffic at rush hour. I'll start with the pension. And I don't know if I can make it beautiful because it was an ugly year. So do you see the PowerPoint up on the screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I did a full version for the Finance Committee yesterday. I'm going to try and cut to the most important parts for the board. But if there are other things that you want me to discuss, ask the questions. I'm happy to go backwards and to go through it. But I know you've got a lot of things on the agenda today. So I'm going to try and just hit the high points. Yes.
So we just heard from our assistant GM that we had good results.
Yes,
That was last year,
that was in 2021, yes.
21, and your discussion is updated to 22,
Which is why Felicia's not doing it.
which is like Felicia is having you do it, yeah.
Excellent point.
Yeah, and I'll be talking about what happened in 2021, comparing it to what's happened since then, as we go through this. But we'll start, where I want to start here is comparing where you are, where you were as of June 30, 2021, and how that compares to other agencies throughout California.
We haven't,
So skipping over to this. So how do you compare relative to other agencies throughout California? Now, the comparison I'm going to do based on two metrics. Funded percentage, which are your assets compared to your liabilities. Basically, do you have enough money to cover the benefits that have already been accrued by your employees? That's calculated as of June 30, 2021, as was mentioned before. The reason we picked June 30, 2021 is because that's the date of the most recent actuarial valuation produced by CalPERS. They released those reports in August of 2022. Those reports are used to calculate the contribution requirement for the district for the 23-24 fiscal year that is starting in a couple months. So that's the first measure. Second measure is how much are you paying? What's your contribution rate as a percentage of pay? So we take the total required contribution for the 23-24 year, divide it by your projected pensionable compensation to get a measure of how much of your payroll goes towards pension, and be able to do it on a basis that compares it to other agencies, so that it's not just the biggest agencies paying the most in terms of dollars. We're doing it as a percentage of pay. Contributions so the district results, we're also comparing you against the agencies that are within the risk pool. The risk pool are the smallest CalPERS agencies, those with 100 or fewer active employees in CalPERS. CalPERS created the risk pool in 2013 in order to make sure that smaller agencies were not hit too hard by bad luck, adverse situations like a single employee having a service-connected disability or dying in the line of duty. Those additional benefits could raise your rates, and did for a number of small agencies, just quadrupled them with one event. So we want that, creating this, spread that experience across agencies throughout all the small agencies throughout California. We take your classic plan, the plan in place for employees hired 2012 and before, which is a slightly more generous plan, compared against the other classic plans, and the PEPRA plan. PEPRA stands for Public Employee Pension Reform Act. That's a slightly less generous plan that's been in effect beginning 2013. And compare that against other PEPRA plans. One thing to note from the PEPRA plan is that the employee contributions towards the PEPRA plan are scheduled to increase, I think, to 8.25 or to 7.75. I don't remember which, but they're going to increase by about 1% of pay, effective July 1 of 2023, because of the way they are designed. So for the miscellaneous plan, you were 81% funded as of June 30, 2021. That puts you right in the middle of where most of the miscellaneous plans are throughout California. So you're in good shape. Your contribution rate, which is 39%, puts you a little bit behind the median for agencies throughout California. And I believe the reason for that is, as of June 30, 2021, you had vacant positions that you hadn't filled. So the unfunded liability, the payment for past service, which is fixed in dollar terms, was being spread over a smaller payroll. And that created a higher percentage. So as you are filling all or have filled or are filling your vacant positions, this arrow will slide to the left and you'll end out being closer to 30%, which is about where sort of the middle of where most agencies are throughout California for your classic plan. For the PEPRA plan, you're 103% funded, which again, right in the middle of where agencies are throughout California. And your contribution rate is 7.7%, which is where 90% of the contributions for PEPRA miscellaneous employees are throughout the state. So you're pretty much in the middle compared to other agencies right now. But that's as of June 30, 2021. What's happened since then? Well, the thing that has the biggest impact on contributions and funded percentage is investment return. So the year that's in there, the year ending June 30, 2021, CalPERS had one of the top 5 investment years in its history. They announced a return of 21.3%. They followed that up in the year ending June 30, 2022 with one of the bottom 5 years in CalPERS investment history, announcing a return of -6.1. As this graph shows, this is the green bars, the returns on a year-by-year basis. Returns were pretty solid in the 80s and 90s, pretty consistently. And then with the dot-com crash, since then, there's been a huge amount of volatility with rates going up and down throughout that time period. And of course, less money for investment returned means more money is going to be required from contributions. A couple other things about this graph. I do want to mention that the numbers showing here, for example, the 21.3, the -6.1, are the numbers that show in the CalPERS reports. They are the amounts that they announce in mid-July as of showing the returns through the end of the June 30 year, but they're not the actual numbers that they credit to your accounts. This does not include the final valuation for private equity. CalPERS has about 10% of their money in private equity. So when the 2021 numbers had the final valuation done, including private equity, they actually credited to your account 23.4%. So more money, better. For the year ending June 30, 2022, that -6.1 turns into a -7.5. And when they take off 10 basis points for administrative fees, they're going to be charging a 7.6% to the account for the loss for the year ending June 30, 2022. So instead of earning positive 6.8, which is their target, they lost 7.6. That's a difference of about 14.5%, or about 1/7 of the assets that are in there. Again, that's going to cause your contributions to go up and your funded percentage to go down. The other big thing that happened in the last year, the 21-22 year, your board stuck an additional $7 million into the Section 115 pension trust. So each year you make an additional contribution of $350,000 to the SEPT, which is invested 2/3 in strategy one being the most aggressive, and 1/3 in strategy two, the sort of middle, moderately aggressive fund. So 2/3 of the money, $4.66 million, goes into strategy one, and 1/3 of the money, $2.33 million, went to strategy two. Your balance as of June 30, 2022 was about a little more than $5.1 million in strategy one and $2.5 million in strategy two. That includes contributions you've made in previous years combined with the $7 million that you put in. The return for the year ending June 30, 2022 actually was a negative number. I think, yeah, so it was a negative return. And the expectation moving forward, CalPERS lowered their expectation for these accounts, dropping them down slightly, I think, from 5 to 4.5 for strategy one, and from 4.5 to 4 for strategy two. So lower expectations moving forward. So what's the impact of these changes? Well, in terms of funded percentage or unfunded liability, your unfunded liability, because of that loss, is going to jump up significantly. The green line here shows where you would have been if after the 2021 valuation, CalPERS had hit all its targets moving forward in all future years. The red line shows with the one extra year of loss, then moving forward on they're hitting their targets, what happens? And your unfunded liability is going to go from 5.45 million up to 9 million. So it's going to increase by 3.5 million, which is basically, roughly 70% increase in the unfunded liability. That your funded percentage is going to drop. It was scheduled to go up. Again, the green line where it was scheduled to go is scheduled to be at 83% next year. Instead, it's going to be at 72%. It dropped 11%. If you remember those graphs that we had, the histograms, you're going to be sliding to the left. But keep in mind, this same phenomenon basically affected every single agency in California. So they're all going to be sliding to the left also. So you'll be in the same relative position compared to other agencies throughout California, but not as well funded. And if you're not as well funded, your contributions are going to go up over the next 5 years. CalPERS takes investment returns that are different than expected and phases in the impact of them over a 5-year period. So again, the green line shows where contributions would have gone if we had hit the targets each year. Basically would have gone up and down as the huge return was phased in, followed by leveling off at around $1 million a year. Instead, they're going to continue growing to about 1.4, 1.5 million over the next 5 to 7 years. So an increase of over 400,000 or over 40%, almost 50% increase in the required contributions for the district to CalPERS. Keep in mind, though.
All right,
Yes.
that 1.5 million is calculated on us meeting all the targets that we have, like 2.5% inflation, 2.5% salary growth. Isn't that right? That's based.
Yeah, the 2.8% salary growth, 6.8% return on investment. Those are the two biggest ones by far. And not having the number of employees at the district increase from where they are right now.
So your point is even the red line has assumptions in it?
Completely, it's full of them. And,
Oh, absolutely. I do not know what's going to happen in the future.
Because the inflation rate's not going to be 2.8.
Inflation is built in, the salary growth is 2.8, inflation's built in, I think it's 2.5.
What was the inflation rate?
I think they assumed 2.5 over the long term.
Well, they made a bad assumption there.
well, what about salaries? We have contracts with our unions at 4%.
Doug does know what's gonna happen.
Well, Ira, that's why we wanted you here to predict the future. I thought your job was.
It's much harder to do it over Zoom.
We'll have you come in next time then.
Yeah, you should have asked these questions yesterday when I was there.
No, I didn't want you to get mad at me when you're too close.
Right, because I'm going to blame you for the inflation. Yeah, I didn't realize this board had control over those things. Okay. So this is all without the 115 trust. The 115 trust does not affect contributions, but it does affect your funded percentage overall. So because you stuck $7 million extra into the trust, your unfunded liability, instead of jumping up, is actually going to be coming down by the 2000. Yeah. So it's going to be coming down to about 800,000 in total, if you include the 115 trust. And the funded percentage combined, both with PERS and otherwise, is going to go up to about 97.5%. So the best thing about the 115 trust, in addition to the fact that you funded it, which is a strong statement, is the fact that your board has control as to when the money gets moved to CalPERS. So when we look at the contributions jumping up, if for some reason in the next few years, the district has a need to, you have major capital improvements you have to make, revenues drop, something happens, you want to be able to not have all this come out of the general fund, you can have some or all of this contribution get paid from the 115 trust because you have, plenty of money in the 115 trust right now, almost $8 million. So you could do that for a series of years and be able to afford it. You also could, when you feel like it, move some of the money from the, to CalPERS just to pay off the unfunded liability. That'll lower the contribution rate, also move your funded percentage up. That is, under at the discretion of the board as to when you do that. And so as you think about that, think about it both in terms of what your revenues are projected to be, what your needs are for expenses during that time period, how those two measure up, and when you think it's the right time to move the money to CalPERS. CalPERS investment, your investments in the 115 trust are more conservative than CalPERS investments overall. So, if you feel like it's the right time to pay off the unfunded liability and let it go, and let the more aggressive investments go, that may be a time to do it. Most of the time, my recommendations go to do it based on your needs and the contribution rates. So at this point, again, I think if your revenues are solid for the next year or so, let the money sit in the 115 trust for a little while longer. Have it there as a rainy day fund for when you do need it, because you set plenty of money aside. Any questions on the pension?
How do 115 trust do?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. We put the chart you had, chart 19, you're showing it's about balance is 22 is 7.775 million. But that's the amount we put in over a number of years, right? I'm right.
That's that money plus investment return. And
That's
the year ending June 30, 2022 was a loss in the 115 trust, even though it was conservatively invested.
Yeah.
Every asset class lost money in the year ending June 30, 2022. So the money went down a little bit.
But we had money in 21, 22. So what is the balance of that?
The balances as of June 30, 2022 are right here, right at the bottom. The 7.675 million.
Yeah. Okay, I thought that was, when I asked that question yesterday, you said that was just the money we put in.
No, if that's not what I intended to say, if that's what how you heard it, I apologize for that. This is the difference between, I got the impression you were asking how it went from the 4.6, the 7 up to the 7.7, and you were thinking that was investment return. It was more than investment return. It was a couple years additional contributions plus investment return on all the money.
Okay, so that's the balance is it's 7,752.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? So remember, all the projections are based on their assumptions.
Right.
And they haven't, we're not making those assumptions currently. So, we're gonna owe, maybe if we make their assumptions, our annual payments would go to 1.4, or whatever. Is it 1.4? 1.5?
It
Yeah.
was a little higher than 1.4. It's not quite 1.5 by 2030.
So
But with, again, this year is gonna, right now, assuming this year continues on the path it has so far, they're gonna fall a little bit short of the 6.8. They'll probably be closer to 5% return. They were at 4% return through beginning of May. So that'll bump it up a little bit more and have you hit about 1.5 million around 2030, 2031.
Okay. And then you told us, let's see, we thought before that we were gonna make, or we were gonna have our OPEB fully funded in 5 years. Remember that?
I'll talk about the OPEB next.
Okay,
done.
okay. So sorry, so,
all right, you
So
say,
don't give away the ending to the story.
okay.
you said that you're kind of recommending it, keeping the money in the trust, but it seems to me to make more sense to put a boatload of it into CalPERS.
You can, and if you do, you'll lower your contribution. And the thing is, you've got 7.7 million. That is basically, even when you hit this numbers up here, that's 5 years of additional contributions. So that's a huge cushion right now, and that may be more than a cushion than you need. So if you were to take part of that, maybe a couple years of it, maybe 3 million, and use it to pay off the unfunded liability, your funded percentage, instead of the unfunded liability jumping up to 9 million, it would only be about 7. That would lower the peak contribution down to, probably, about 1.3, 1.2. I mean, you'd save over the course of the next 20 years, you would make that money back and interest on it.
So we're not making that much money on the trust. Wouldn't it make more sense to put about 5 million in? Oh, but it's not like we're not, I understand we didn't want to put it in because whatever you get to CalPERS, you never get back if you overfunded. But 5 million is not going to be an overfunding.
You're not going to be overfunded. So from that perspective, it's not going to be money that disappears. You are getting rid of some of your rainy day funds, some of your flexibility for future years. So if you're worried about any of that, the other thing, and I hate to suggest market timing in any way, but I would at least wait until we see what happens with the debt ceiling in Congress before moving any money in any way that gets a little more aggressive than it is right now. If the debt ceiling, if the US government does not pay its debts at the end of the month, interest rates are going to shoot through the roof and the stock market's going to plummet. The less aggressive you are with your investments at that point, you'll still lose money, but you'll lose less. Once that's done, once we realize, or once they determine that they need to have a few grown-ups in Congress and they act like it, then at that point, moving the money over, let CalPERS do their thing. It may make sense, it makes sense to stick, and the board can, I can work with your staff to determine an amount that they are comfortable with and to recommend to you to move over from the 115 trust to CalPERS, so that lowering your future contribution requirements.
Okay, but what happens when we move money from our trust into CalPERS? They tell us we owe less money.
Mhm.
So to really make it do any good, we've got to pay more money than CalPERS tells us.
Right,
Otherwise, we lose ground.
right.
Lose more
I
ground.
understand it.
So, I was telling us that we can knock this higher peaks down if we move the money in, but our overall unfunded liability goes up. If we don't make this level of payments, it's gonna, our unfunded liability.
You'll still make the payments. Moving the money to the 115 trust, at least what I heard as the suggestion was to move it over on top of your regular contribution,
But our
paying
regular
off the unfunded liability
is gonna
and
go-
therefore lowering future required contributions. The red line would come down.
Okay,
it lowers your future required,
Right.
so
Yeah.
you've got to keep making them, or your unfunded liability goes up,
but here's my question.
which may earn a little bit more.
You mentioned keeping it in the trust. Because it's a rainy day fund. It's a rainy day fund for what? It's a trust. We can't use it for anything but.
Yes, we can use it to reduce the amount we pay to CalPERS. That's what
Yes.
happens. They send us a bill for how much we owe. We don't owe as much, so our bill goes down. So that's, you use it as a rainy, let's say we've got some problem that we want to keep it at about 1.3 million. We stick some money in there and they'll say, okay, you only owe 1.3 million. But our unfunded liability would go up. Because because the way we are now, I guess the only thing that helps, we're not paying as much in. So it would go up, right?
If we keep our,
If we put money in there and make these payments, then it'll go down. Am I right on that? I think.
Well,
you're
yeah,
right.
if you put these payments in, it'll go down. That's actually what we're showing by this, the red line here. Again, it's peaking and then it's coming down. But
also pay our normal amount that they're asking for.
Right, if you give them money in an extra, let's call it 5 million in advance, dropping the 9 million unfunded down to 4 million, then your future required contributions to keep you on a track to go down to zero will be lower. If you put, let's do this so I can do it easily. If you stick 3.5 million, which is how much it went up by this. So if you pay them an additional 3.5 million from the 115 trust, then the contribution line goes back to the green line. That's the, this extra 3.5 million caused the increase from the green to the red. You pay the 3.5 that you lost in investment return during the year back to them, and it goes to the green line. You pay 5, it's going to go below the green line, and you'll have lower contributions. That lower contribution will be enough to have you on track to pay off your unfunded liability at the same time you would have here, which is roughly 2035.
So, I'm fine with your suggestion that we wait until the debt ceiling issue is resolved. I actually don't necessarily agree that they're all being children. In both business and in politics, compromise isn't treason, it's the job. So they're fighting with each other, and I don't blame them. I see some of both sides. But I think we should move money, a significant amount of money into CalPERS. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, we will, if that's the direction that your board wants, we will work with staff to come back to you to figure out with some suggestions as to a good amount to move over.
It was only my suggestion. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Well, we can study it. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
In other words, we got $7 million, $7.75 million. We've got it. And assuming your assumptions, we've got to make higher payments. And so I was telling us that if we put it in here, we can make these lower payments. What happened to the unfunded liability? It didn't disappear.
Mhm.
You get it? We're not paying as much.
Well, you paid off the part from CalPERS perspective.
That's
You paid
it.
off some of the
From CalPERS
unfunded
perspective,
liability.
we owe less. But there's no way of getting around this. We could put $5 million in there, but I think this is what we're gonna owe.
Can you
Yeah,
study
they
what,
make
what
their
if we,
targets.
what, can you give us a report on what if we jumped 3.5 or what if we jumped 5?
Do we want to do that for it?
What,
I think you're saying study it.
Yeah, inquiring minds want to
at the
know.
risk, what would be the downside of that? What is the 7 point whatever million doing now? And are we using that to pay our contributions?
We
No.
can, but we're not.
Okay,
We can, but we're not. And it does, as Ira was saying, it is invested for the fund strategies that are available to us in that section 115 trust. It's not doing very well, but it's doing
Better than they are.
less unwell than.
How did it do during the good year, Ira? What,
During the good year, it probably earned about 8 instead of the 21%.
oh,
And then during the bad year, it probably, I think it lost just, 1% or so instead of losing 7.5.
Oh,
And the timing was, we didn't have it invested during the growth year.
yeah.
Which was good.
Right.
Because then we would have gotten less return. So, but so it was fortunate
Right.
when the timing of the decision, because
Well,
we lost less.
see.
But is this being reactive to assumptions based on changed circumstances?
I mean, maybe.
It would moving money be reacting in a
You know,
way that maybe
I read.
cooler heads could prevail?
I was telling us that it provides flexibility. We, as a board, I'm pretty sure, never put that $7 million in to reduce our payments, did we? We yanked it in, no, we didn't. We put it in to reduce our unfunded liability.
Which means that we'd have less to owe each year.
It doesn't,
Only if you give it to CalPERS.
only if you give it to
But that's
CalPERS.
what I'm talking about.
Okay, if we give it to CalPERS, they tell us we owe less. So we're paying in less. We haven't added any money to the pool. We put it in a better investment. That's all. So we're missing this amount.
But when you get to customers, they don't see it.
And again, if you count if I showed the money with the 115 trust, which is this graph, your unfunded liability, if you moved all the money from the 115 trust to CalPERS, your unfunded liability would only be 800,000 at that point. Now you get rid of all your flexibility in the future, but you'd be 97% funded, as we're showing here. And your contribution requirement would drop down dramatically in the future years, but because you'd be giving CalPERS the money, it then counts, and that's when they have it, that's when they start lowering your future contributions. But to do that, you're giving up the flexibility you have in the future. So, in that case, all the flexibility you have in the future, which is again not what you're suggesting. You were suggesting smaller amounts, but if you move it all, you get all the benefit, but you lose all the flexibility. If you move some, you still have some flexibility left to protect during it, for unknown economic events that affect the district's general fund. And then that can help you get through making the pension payments during those times.
I'm sorry, you said the district's general fund. How does it affect the district's general fund?
If you decide, like right now, go back to the contribution. Let's say CalPERS says you're supposed to pay 1.2 million next year, 1.3 million the year after, 1.5 million the year after that. If you have a need for money, you can make your entire required contribution from the 115 trust. So that gives you 1.2, 1.3, and 1.5 million over the next 3 years. That doesn't have to go to CalPERS. That can be used from the general fund then has more money to be able to spend on something else.
Okay.
That's where the flexibility comes in.
Okay, so.
And if we're studying this, I can bring this back in a lot more detail and walk through this. If it's something that the board is interested in looking at. And again, looking at it doesn't mean you have to do it. But if it's something you're interested in looking at, we can work with your staff and pull together an explanation of how it works and what the impact would be.
Okay, let's try and figure out, would the board like Ira to run a calculation? Like what you suggested, 3.5 million.
Well, he's gonna do that. Why don't we do 3.5, 5, and 7?
Well, because it's too confusing. And we don't really understand the impact of it.
He can explain that.
Okay. But I've been trying to explain it, and I don't think that you're getting it. Okay. I think you can't make money up. If I've got 7 million here and I move over here, they say you owe less money.
Right.
But you're
That's all-
not paying as much.
I know, but that's what. We'll pay the same one way or another. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that we
And
all.
he wants the CalPERS stamp to prove you have a low unfunded liability.
Well, that's-
So then-
I do want that, but I also think maybe I am missing something, because you're showing me graphs that saying we'll be at 97% funding according to CalPERS, and they'll be sending us less bills in the future,
It's,
and won't we be saving money in the long run if we do that?
Yes,
will we be
That's right.
lowering?
But we set up the trust, this is fine, this is not, it's because we wanted to have this cushion where if something went weird, we could pay our contributions out of that trust.
I don't
And because
know if we did that or not. That wasn't my reason for doing it. I wanted to pay down the unfunded
And
liability.
if we pay down to 97%, I mean, we pay 97% of it, we're gonna get a lot less bills, and Ira, could you, if you're gonna do this calculation, can you tell us how much money we think we could be saving in the long run if we move the money?
I'll do that as part of the process. Yes.
Thank you. Let's just.
Do we want to do that? Let's just do 3.5 million. Bunch of alternatives. If we decide it works, then we can go to something else. We're not in a hurry.
Is it, how hard is it to do 3 valuations versus 1?
It really isn't a whole lot of extra work on our part to do it, you know.
Let's do 3.
I want to do one.
You don't wanna see different graphs,
No,
dial up and
Yeah,
down?
because I think we're missing the whole point of this. That's what I think.
I trust you because you're the finance guy on the board, but I don't
Well-
understand why that's missing the whole point.
Okay, let me tell you.
You still,
We've got money we've got money at first. We've got money over here to trust. We just take it in a different bucket. We do it in a different bucket. It does earn a little bit more interest. That's the advantage. But we stop paying this higher amount. Only because CalPERS says, hey, you're all funded.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, this is all the assumptions that it's going. on.
right,
So we're not paying that difference in payments to CalPERS. So I say this is gonna cause our unfunded liability to go up. We're not putting as much money in. It has to go up.
It's not gonna go up because we've given it to CalPERS and they recognize that we're 97% funded.
They don't send us a bill for it, that's all. But this is what's gonna happen to our.
But because they have extra money and they're earning investment return on that extra money,
No, that's-
then they'll get to the same place at the same, they'll get to 100% funded at the same time
As us doing it.
as you would if you followed the red line and didn't give them the extra money up front.
I don't see how, certainly don't. Oh, boy. In other words, we're not adding any money, are we? You know, we've taken 7 million and moving it over.
the way I see it is we're just,
Whatever.
if we,
Paying it into the actual unfunded pension as opposed to putting it
Okay.
in.
But yeah, the other thing to notice, if you look at the graph here, this is the graph with the 115 trust. If you keep the money in the 115 trust to make your regular payments to CalPERS, where you end out is you end out being in a surplus position instead of being at 100% funded. You're over 100% funded. You are 120% funded because of the extra money in the 115 trust. So keeping it in the 115 trust, you're going to end up being overfunded. You've got a cushion to protect you against a market drop that may happen at some point, will happen. But it's extra money set aside. If you move the money to CalPERS, you'll end out at 100% funded at that point, not the combined being at 120.
Yes, what I'm
So
saying.
again, some of your cushion goes away.
Yeah, we aren't meeting the CalPERS targets at all. Neither is anybody in the state.
Mhm.
Their assumptions are different about it. We cannot reduce CalPERS. No matter what they say. Right? That's my point.
We can always do that.
Okay, well, we have to do it. You know, because we put 7 million in and got our unfunded liability down to nothing and missed the targets. And now we've got a big unfunded liability.
No, but we wouldn't have a big one.
we're vulnerable.
We get to subtract 7 million from it, no matter where it is. The only advantage to this is that they earn more. The disadvantage is we would be putting less into CalPERS. If we're putting less into CalPERS, we're underfunded by. It's no matter what they tell us, because They're missing their targets all
I
the time.
understand, but if we're funded at 97%, it's not gonna go from being funded 97% to being funded 12%.
It's gonna go to 85%. Is that good?
Every year it's going to be revalued. So I think you're, yeah, I think, well, right, there's a new valuation that happens every
Yeah, I
year.
know.
So if you're.
It's awful.
Right, so I think what you two are debating is, yes, we could pay down our unfunded liability. If we did that, it would be for that snapshot in time.
Mhm.
And then in the future, we may then again have another unfunded liability.
Right,
So you're
I understand that.
right, so it's policy direction discussion that still needs to be made.
Here's our
Wow.
unfunded liability, let's say it goes to zero. And so we have to pay less each year.
Mhm.
But the unfunded liability goes like that.
Wait, we had.
We're giving up this. To do it. CalPERS is gonna tell us we owe that. And we don't owe that, we owe more than that.
Yeah, but that's gonna be year by year. Every year it's gonna be different, and it's not gonna change. If their account person misses them, we're still gonna have a gap, and our $7 million is not gonna be enough to cover it.
Okay, but we're not gonna know it, you see what I mean?
I do know that.
They're gonna tell us, gee,
7 million,
Rosie,
7 million, which will take us, it's a capacitor to ride us through some modicum of rough times that may or may not come up and not put the district in a financial bind later on, because once that $7 million is out of the trust, then we don't have any buffer to go on.
Well, unless we put more money into it.
Well, yeah, but then we're gonna be in the same boat. And so maybe what we should do is ask Ira, work with staff. And whether it's
Recommend
one
something.
scenario or whether it's 3 scenarios, we have great financial people here and with Corey and with Tom. And work it out amongst yourselves, because I get highs when I think about the rows of numbers.
And it seems to me like the way we have it now is that our risk is more diversified, right? Because we have like this chunk of money sitting, and yes, the money in health reserves more, but it could potentially drop more. So anyway, I don't, and we're not planning to have we're gonna have ratepayers paying.
that's what I think.
So anyway, yeah, I think we can be,
We don't need the money for a rainy day, I don't think. We're putting it into the rainy day program already.
but let's not throw it all into CalPERS, because CalPERS is like a roller coaster ride. Is that one way of thinking of it? If you put in the-
My thing is they tell us we owe less money.
I see.
That's the problem. It's a fake security.
Yes.
It's phony. It's not.
Oh,
It's okay.
Right,
So-
it's based on
But
market.
that's a good thing. Let's.
Okay. Let staff and Ira decide what we need to
Staff and
see.
I were to be able to explain it.
Staff will make a presentation to the board
Okay,
on investment strategies for company.
yeah, okay.
I was not even done with it.
No,
No, it's not.
Okay.
But that was good. That was a good discussion. I think that's what this board should be doing.
Might help.
But I'm very confident.
Ira can tell you if I'm dead wrong.
We'll prepare some scenarios. to present.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as long as you're not dead, you can be wrong.
Okay,
Just find him mostly wrong. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so that's, right. So we have some direction on pension. Now I'm gonna switch over to OPEB and see if we can make this. That was my attempt at a quick discussion.
Well, your discussion was quick. Ours was long.
you were good.
Right, and the thing is, I think if I had gone long, you all wouldn't have wanted to talk as much. So maybe not. Okay, let's go to the OPEB. All right. OPEB, again, OPEB is a retiree health plan. And taking a look, there it is up on the screen. snapshot of where you were as of June 30, 2021. The June 30, 2021 date was the date that was used for your June 30, 2022 financial statements. You had an unfunded liability at that point of 847,000, so you were 57% funded. Now, OPEB plans are generally not as well funded as pension plans across the state, across the country. 57% funded has you in the upper quartile of funded percentages for OPEB plans for agencies throughout California. So you're in good shape. The payments that you make in the coming year, you're going to make about 32,000 in explicit benefit payments. So actual benefit payments going to the employees. The combination, the accounting standard asks to know both the money, the cash that you spend, and what's known as the implicit benefit payments. These are because CalPERS charges the same premiums without regard to age. So the 25-year-old employees pay the same premium for healthcare that a 62-year-old retiree pays. Generally, healthcare costs go up as people get older. So there is, by charging the same amount, you're basically subsidizing the retirees and charging a little extra for the active employees. The extra 24,000 that shows up between these two numbers is the hidden cost of extra premiums that are paid for your active employees right now, because CalPERS has a rule that says the premium payments are all the same for all different ages. That's California state law. CalPERS ruled to be part of their plan. They get away with that because CalPERS, by being able to negotiate for 1 million healthcare people across the state, gets lower rates than you could get otherwise. So overall, you're probably saving money by doing this. But we're keeping track of both of those numbers because the accounting standards require it. Again, most important thing, investment return. Investment return was a bad year on the retiree health side, just like it was on the pension, just like it was in the 115 trust. For SERP strategy 1, which is more aggressive than the SEP strategy 1 that you're in, they lost 13.5%. The other thing, and over in 2022, the first 3 quarters of the year, first 2 quarters of the year were part of that number. Third quarter was still terrible returns, a -7.3. Fourth quarter, they earned a positive 6.8. First quarter of 2023, I think they had a positive number, but not that big a positive number. The expected return moving forward for SERP strategy 1 used to be 7.5. It's been dropped down to 6%. Just because of changing markets and where they expect it to be over time. Less money expected to come from investment return means your liabilities are going up. More money is going to be required from the district. So we did some projections. And I want to talk about the enhanced benefits, because this is a change that you made a few years ago. You increased the benefits for your current employees. So instead of being limited at 40% of the premium being paid for retirees, they can get up to 100% paid depending on how long they work. To get that, they are paying for the cost of this additional enhanced benefit, everything on top of what you were giving them before. To pay for that, they were making contributions of $109.73 per pay period in 2020 and 2021. It dropped down to $88.10 per pay period beginning in 2022. The big reason for that drop was more employees to spread the cost over. You basically filled out your workforce a little bit more, filled vacancies. The way we calculate that is we take the difference between the actuarially determined contribution calculated with the enhanced benefits and with the extra assets, and compared to what the actuarially determined contribution would have been without those enhanced benefits and without the extra money that's been put in. That difference gets paid, then gets divided by the number of active employees and divided by the number of pay periods to figure out how much gets paid each pay period. Every 2 years, we do a full valuation and we update that number. So depending on how many employees you have at that point in time, that'll determine whether this number changes. The initial liability that was set, that got created from this was about 470,000. But it gets updated again every 2 years. The contributions coming in, this shows the contributions coming in. They come in every 2 weeks. I'm showing them by month. Every few months, there's a third pay period that shows up. That's why it spikes up every 4 to 5 months, because of 3 pay periods and 3 pay periods in that month. And the reason why it dropped down in 2022 is because the lower contribution requirements coming in at that point in time. This graph shows the blue here are the basic benefits that you're paying. The orange are the enhanced benefits on top of it. Now, this looks like, to some extent as big as all this, but they're on very different scales. When I put them on the same scale here to see what's going on, blue is the money coming in, orange is the money going out. A lot more money coming in than going out, which is what you would expect because you're catching up for all the past liability, for all this enhanced benefit for people who've been working for the district. And you need to have enough money set aside so that when those people retire, there's enough to pay for them for the rest of their lives. So overall, which means, again, this is the kind of graph I expect to see. A lot more blue, a lot higher than orange. You're in good shape. When the next valuation gets done, all this will be an account balance with all of these ins and outs will be taken into account to help decide how much extra needs to continue to be paid by the active employees. Overall funding for your plan, to do that, first of all, you decided on top of paying your required contributions, your benefit payments, you would make an additional $100,000 into the CERP each year. So you paid the $100,000 in the 2021 year, plus an additional $86,000 in employee contributions for the enhanced benefits. For the 21-22 year, the combination of the two was about $175,000. So you also continue to make the payments for current benefits to current retirees from the general fund. And the way you're set up right now is you've said you want to continue paying that until the plan gets to 100% funded. Once it hits 100% funded, then you're going to start funding it just like the pension gets funded on a sort of pre-funding, actuarially determined basis, paying for the normal costs plus unfunded liability payments while they're working to have enough money, and paying the benefits out of the trust for the people who are retired. So where are we right now? Well, to make that projection to where you're going, we've assumed that the discount rate is going to drop to 6%, which is the rate the CalPERS said they are expecting moving forward. We put in the minus 13.5% return, and we assume moving forward, they're going to match the 6% return for all future years. We're assuming that you put in, $100,000 on top of the benefit payments. And then plus the 75,000 employee contributions for the enhanced benefits. What that does, this is your unfunded liability. It's going to jump up in 2022, the next valuation, from about 800,000 to about $1 million, because again, lower discount rate and the loss of investments. After that, it's going to be coming down. You are projected to be 100% funded by June 30, 2028. In terms of funded percentage, again, this shows the same thing, hitting 100% June 30, 2028. Now, your current policy is to try and get to 100% funded by June 30, 2025. So we also ran a scenario to determine how much extra money you would have to put in to hit that target. To do that, you would have to, instead of contributing an additional $100,000 per year into the trust, which you're doing now, you would have to contribute $280,000 per year into the trust. So going from 100,000 to 280,000. And again, this only works if experience matches moving forward what the assumptions are. Each year, this is going to shift one way or another from the target. If you do that, again, on top of the benefits you're already paying, contributions are going to go up to about 450,000 a year from the 250,000 a year. So it's going to jump up by 180,000. You will get 100% funded, and then your contributions will drop down to just normal costs, which is under 100,000 a year. Total contributions, including the benefit payments. Your funded percentage, instead of getting to 100% in 2028, which again is faster than most agencies throughout California, would hit your target, the goal you have set to be 100% funded June 30, 2025. So the question becomes, which, and again, there are other options, but these are the basically two main directions. Do you want to continue with your current timeline, get to 100% funded by June 30, 2025? And to do that, it's going to cost you an extra 180,000 per year. So you need to direct staff to do that. Or are you okay with the pace at which you're going right now, which will get you to 100% funded by June 30, 2028, and continue putting in the 100,000 extra per year? This is a question.
Help me with the math. So if we put another $180,000 in for the next 3 years,
Correct.
then we'd be saving, or how much money does that pay us in future?
Right. After that, your contributions would drop down. Instead of, for the next 3 years, instead of putting in about 300,000 per year, you'd be putting in less than 100,000. So you'd be saving at least 200,000 a year for the 3 following years. So 100,000 extra, 180,000 for 3 years saves you 200,000 plus, 220,000 plus in the last year. So you'll get a return on your investment. But given the short time period, it's not a huge return on the investment.
Remember when we started this,
Yeah.
we had 400 something thousand. And OPEB, we put in 400,000, we now have 850,000. But that's my point. We cannot move with payments.
I'm not saying we should lower.
Yes, okay. We did set a 5-year program, and we're not going to make it. And we're paying an additional $100,000. And most of about half of the unfunded liability is being funded 100% by employees.
Correct.
I think we're paying ahead, and they're going to pay us back. It's a great system.
And the employees are paying ahead as well.
What's that?
Employees are paying ahead as well,
Okay.
ahead of the liabilities.
So, we could pay 280, or we continue to pay 100. What if, we could pay something in between? I don't think that if we pay 280, they're going to have a zero income.
Well, here's one. I get that.
See that?
Here's my suggestion. Why don't we put 280 in this year and talk about this next year? Because this is going to be done every year. This can't be done more than, less than that. Every year we have to look at these, maybe even more than once a year.
Yeah, once a year is plenty. Once a year is plenty.
What do you think about that, Ira? Putting in 280 for this year and then getting to visit with you again?
And again, the way it's worked is I come back every year. We talk about this.
Yeah.
This number is going to change. It's going to shift next year anyway, one way or another. And the thing is, once you put the 280 in the budget, it's a lot easier for the next year to, again, if you need it, you can drop it back down. If you don't, if you've got the money, then it's comfortable to move for another year. So it's, I think at least trying to stay on the path is probably a good idea.
What does staff think about that?
We have that extra
We have the money,
180 to put in.
Yeah.
yes,
And would the
and
policy need to be changed, not changed if we put in the 180 because we're still on target to try to, okay.
so.
Or we could do like 150,000.
Then we'd have to change the policy. Well, it's a projection right now, right? Which is this policy saying we'll put in,
It's not,
I think it wasn't a written policy so much as a funding plan.
it's a
No,
it's a
so-
budgeting item.
Yeah.
They're deciding on the amount to put in the budget.
like,
Does the board want to put in 280 or someone will be disappointed with that?
Listen, we're gonna be disappointed by CalPERS every year. There's nothing that's gonna change about that, except last year.
We
That
didn't
was a
get to
rare-
revel last year. That's,
Yeah.
I missed that part. We didn't revel.
No, we didn't. I think we did. Maybe we reveled. I reveled a little bit. Maybe it was quiet.
hard to revel.
Inside I was reveling.
Zoom.
You're right.
You know, okay, I think we ought to put more than 100,000.
I'm fine to put in 280 if staff says that we have that money and then see where we are.
the money, you know.
Yes.
And let's
And we're gonna have to put it in.
That's
anyway,
again next year.
Anyway,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Looking at it again next year and putting in the budget, another
280.
280 total.
And I also think if for some reason we need to get another credit rating, this kind of thing helps our credit rating.
Well, we're gonna do a refund of it, so
So I think,
Yeah.
you know, they look at this.
sure they do. That's a good point.
That's a good point, but it's also maybe another point of information for the board to consider, and Ira, you can help me out with this, but having the money in the section 115 trust is reflected on our balance sheet.
Yes.
So that's our money that we can show that we have towards
Yeah.
our pension.
Yeah, I made that point some time ago.
Now, what
agreed that
about-
was important to-
What about the investment vehicle? Is it real conservative? This, it's a different one than the,
It is certain set type different.
Right, this is a little, this is more aggressive than your pension 115 trust.
for lost ones.
okay, so it's better than. Okay.
And worse.
Yeah.
So is that okay with the board then? Direction of staff is 280 for next year.
That's right on.
And we'll figure out what to do with. pension.
Great.
Can I, is there more?
That's
No,
enough.
this was everything. Unless you really have more things you need to talk about.
I think if we talk much more about numbers, this board's gonna implode a little bit tonight.
We do have the budget.
I'd like to make a motion.
Do we need a motion?
We had.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, motion to accept.
Thank you, Ira.
Ira, thank you very much. Very helpful.
Thank you,
And
Ira.
then you're gonna work with staff on the pension scheme.
I'm sorry.
He's gonna work with staff. on-
Yes, absolutely. And the clerk correctly points out that we would like a motion to accept the actuarial.
I move
reports.
to accept the.
Second,
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
unless we need to discuss this. tonight.
any further discussion?
Roll call or no, just,
All in favor?
all right.
Aye. No, we don't need to do. roll
No, we do not.
Thank you again, Ira.
Okay, have a nice day.
Okay, we're on 5.
Summer, no, in the consent calendar.
Oh. Oh, no, go first.
No, committee reports out. Let's go to committee report. That's right after the small collection system of the unit. Committee reports, ad hoc human resources committee.
The ad hoc human resources
We
committee.
discussed item 11 and it's no longer on the ballot.
Oh.
Unless Tom and you would like to have a discussion about it now. I don't.
We're not even gonna talk about the title of the clerk position.
You
Okay.
could,
Okay.
but it's not necessary.
Okay.
It's gonna come back.
Oh, that's right. We're not, yeah, we pulled that. Okay, so let's go on to ad hoc facilities committee. Michael,
Wow. It's awesome. No, seriously, it's. I'm not gonna say it's done, but boy, you walk in there and you say, this is a facility. And
Oh,
this is,
sure.
this is where everybody's gonna be. And The offices are all well defined, the spaces is all laid out. The hanging ceilings are all in, the tiles aren't in yet, but that's any second now. The kitchen area is in with windows and open and it's bright. The locker / changing rooms look gorgeous. The lighting is all in, the air conditioning ducts are all ready to go. The cabinets are all going in. They're all there and they're busy putting them up everywhere. The painting, it's pretty much all done. There's some touch-up work that needs to get done. And then they're gonna start laying the carpet, Paul said, on the next week. And then nobody can go in for a little bit because they don't want us walking around.
But they're gonna do carpet next week?
I believe it'll be actually the following week. They were shooting for the end of next week, but I think they're gonna push it out just until the beginning of the following week. But even after the new carpet goes in, they'll have runners laid down, so we can still walk. Okay. Yeah.
But it really looks good. There's plenty of room in the entryway for our award and our other award. And then we can, plenty of room for growth in the future for the award.
All of it.
It's really exciting and, all of us were here for this entire journey. From looking at other spaces, negotiating and doing all that to see it really come to fruition and we're gonna move in there soon. So it's good. Yeah, very exciting.
All the cabinets are delivered, they're in, the cabinets are installed in the mail room.
Yeah.
Really looks cool. But not too many others, but then, okay. Quite a lot of things. Finance committee. Marin?
Finance committee met and discussed. Oh, I had Ira's full presentation, which didn't go nearly as long as Ira's short presentation. I didn't use the budget, which we're gonna review tonight. It's true. Todd and I nary a minute on whether to move the 7-9 from the trust. Yes, and reviewed other items from the budget tonight, including the financials, all of which looked really good and was the first time that the financials are being printed out with using the Cassell software, which produced a GL account report at the end, which mostly confused us and raised questions. So that would probably be eliminated because all of the other information is just aggregate, not chart of other information included elsewhere.
See, if you hear the presentation of the pension. One additional time, it doesn't help. CMSA.
We had a fairly light agenda. We looked at our draft budget for fiscal 24 and 25. Which you're on the finance committee there too. Yeah, so you reviewed that yourself.
26, because it's your budget.
That's right. Yeah. We looked at changing some of our fee ordinance because our fee ordinance were somewhat flat, meaning if you came in with a small truck of 20 gallons and you came in with a large truck of 200, your fee was the same. And so we've kind of changed those, altered those to make them a little more fair. We normally cancel our August meeting. What we're going to do this time is we're canceling these regular August and September board meetings and having one at the very end of August, August 30th. And that'll accommodate some of the personal issues, vacations and whatever at the in this office. And then we also, Michael was kind enough to suggest, and I hope he spoke, maybe he didn't, but now we will, that we're inviting CMSA to have their August 30 meeting at Ross Valley Sanitary District. Because they can see the new facilities and they can enjoy the new boardroom, and also that we're going to have the clerk of the board, but we'll have the new clerk of the board get the food, because when they came here, they're like, wow. But ours is just a little snacky. So that was just a thought. We hope that can be passed on formally from the GM to the GM. But I think that'll be cool, because it's kind of, they let us come here, let's have them go there. And they'll be jealous. So
I will have to say we just-
that was really Michael's. That was
And
like,
also, then, there are JPA.
Yeah.
Sister agencies, and they should see, you know, part of that will not be just to have it there, but in getting a tour of the new facility. Anyway,
So a tour of the facility is the priority and the.
That'd be maybe 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before.
Okay, and conducting the meeting there is a possibility as well.
yeah. if
Okay.
we can.
Okay, we'll definitely hope to make that work.
And it might be September.
Well, they're gonna have a meeting in August, so.
Okay, all right. North Bay, Emma?
Yes, North Bay met on May 5th. They have a hybrid thing still. And we didn't have really a formal guest speaker situation. We went over a work plan review for 23-24. I know, I sent it all around. Are you able to get that there? Thank you. That's the first one. There it is. You can go ahead and keep scrolling until it comes to current fiscal year. There you go. So right there, you can see our membership is going up. We're getting more money. Because of COVID, I think we didn't do much, so we're able to save money. And moving along, you can also see there's not much change in our annual budget. But we are starting to propose new programs, opportunities. And if you have ideas, please let us know. Moving along, you can see the executive director of services and what he does. It brings to our meetings. Andy. And then here's our work plan structure, and you can see administrative services, dental benefits, and specific benefit projects. And getting down to the end, if you could just go to the next, the guy who did the presentation, the other. So Tony Hale did this amazing presentation, and we're going to get new website refreshment. If you could scroll up. And he's great. He's been around for a long time. He's very crisp, has really good ideas. And if you scroll up, you'll see some of our old website. Go up with it, up to the top. Shame on it. There's the old site, and that was a painting. I can't think of her name. She was the manager before.
Judy Kelly.
Who? Judy. Yeah. Some famous painting. It doesn't look famous, but it was. And then if you go up, so now we're looking more, cool kind of stuff. And that's sort of it. So it was more of a planning, educational meeting. And we're going to have a field trip maybe in June. August will skip a month. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to 6, verbal report by Gio.
Sure, thank you, President Gaffney, board members. Speaking of North Bay Watershed Association, I'm working on an update of the business plan for the second time of year. We're doing a little bit ahead of schedule. And I noticed in the original strategic plan, which is this framework for the business plan, participation in North Bay Watershed Association was really highlighted back 8 years ago as something that was important for one of our strategic objectives for water resources and community sustainability. So your ongoing commitment to that fulfills a strategic objective. So that is one thing I'm working on, and convening the business plan committee later this month, and hope to have a draft business plan for you next board meeting. Building on a couple things I reported on last month, we did go to the water board hearing requesting that the collection system not be named on the NPDES permits for CMSA, but committing to the same work as had been done in prior years. The water board did not honor that request, but they did make a modification that's helpful for Ross Valley. They had put in a number for capital improvement project commitment, a dollar amount. based on scaling, what the SD2, Sanitary District 2 had committed to, based on our sewer land. So they had a $20 million for 4-year commitment that they proposed, and we asked them to reduce it to 15 million because it was for projects to address I&I, or infiltration inflow. And some of our capital program is for pump stations, which don't address infiltration inflow. So they heard the comment and honored the request and reduced the obligation to $15 million in 4 years for that type of work. And we're confident we can meet that.
Hey, Steve, wasn't there a push to go to 10 years between permit? What happened to that?
Yeah, the Congressman Garamendi did bring forward a proposed bill to Congress that was advocated by NACWA, the national version of CASA, the National Clean Water Agencies. And so I believe that's in process. I don't know the status of it, but that he did author a bill to change the permit cycle for NPDES permits from the current 5-year cycle that's in the Clean Water Act to change that to a 10-year cycle. And something that the clean water agencies support, because there's we've been doing it now for 50 years, half a century, and every 5 years and maybe a 10-year cycle, we still get the good work done, be more efficient. So, but I have no news on that, other than I think it's been introduced. Okay, so I figure that it's not a bad outcome. We didn't get everything we wanted, but we did bring some information to them about blending, technical information, and how blending events went up this last 5 years, even though number one, the collection systems were named, number two, Ross Valley expended an accelerated amount of capital program investment and debt issuance, and still didn't have a decrease in blending because of climate factor. So we did introduce, there's a limited reach of this regulatory approach to having that type of outcome that they were assuming might happen. So, the discussion will continue as far as the technical discussion, what's possible, because obviously, our clean water agencies, we're always committed to finding solutions that are cost effective and protecting. So next, I did mention last month that I was asked to give a repeat presentation to the BACWA Asset Management Committee to present on our infrastructure asset management plan update 2021 and how it was translating to a more effective risk-based capital program with some examples of things that we've already implemented in both capital and O&M. And for the consultant who worked with us, Alan Scott, to describe the methodology in case other BACWA members might be interested in doing a similar master planning approach for their infrastructure asset. So the information sharing, it's great discussion from various BACWA members around the region. That was back on May 9th. Next, VACCON was delivered. Our smaller combination unit that both does vacuuming and hydrojetting was delivered to landing on Friday, last Friday, the 12th May. And field staff were given an overview and a training of how this new vehicle could be operated. It's similar, it's the same company that our large VACCON and our large combination truck came from, and so the folks are familiar, staff's familiar with the vendors, and it was a nice meeting. Felicia and Paul and I all attended to welcome the new member of our fleet. So we're all excited to see that go into action. As we mentioned in the previous budget year, when we budgeted for this item, it's apparent that for our region, our district, our narrow roads and our steep roads, we will benefit from having this functionality in a smaller unit. And to be able to have vacuuming ability up in the hills, working in easements, that sort of thing. So this really fills a gap, I think, in our fleet. And we appreciate the board's support of enabling us to have this. And other crews can use it for different reasons. You know, it's another jetter, but it also has the ability to pull debris out. Which can be helpful, very helpful in sanitary sewer overflows. For instance, I want to capture a spill in a storm drain system. Then having the ability to pull that out with the vacuum. The water board looks favorably on those type of vacuums. So, we're excited about that. And then finally, my last update is I want to announce a decision we made to have an event. A ribbon cutting event, public outreach event. Celebrating the last project of our cease and desist order capital list project at Pump Station 14 in Larkspur. We have a nice little park like setting around the pump station building there with some native oak trees. And I first started working here and thought about that. You know, it would be a lovely place to have a lunch or an event even in there, but it was right next to a pump station. I didn't want to have my lunch there. Now we put in a state-of-the-art photo ionization odor scrubbing system. And the science teacher that used to teach at my kid's school, he teaches at Hall Middle School now. And his classroom is right next to the pump station across from the drop-off area. So I told Mr. Duvall, please be my nose in the field. Let me know if if you detect any sewage odors, in your class. You're right next to where we put in this new technology. So I confirmed with him last week. I said, Mr. Duvall, have you noticed anything? And he said, no, not a thing, but I'll keep my nose out for you. So that gave me the confidence that we can do a ribbon cutting ceremony on Wednesday, July 19th, the day of the next the board meeting that month. Hoping that that's something that you all can put on your calendars. You'll presumably be attending the board meeting.
And which times again?
And we do it at midday, and we'll have a lunch like we did last time we did ribbon cutting. Noon. And so anyway, mark your calendars, and we'll do the same outreach more or less that we did last time to our local dignitaries and elected representatives and others.
And the students at Paul Middle School.
Well, the Larkspur or Madera School District will certainly be one of the VIP. They're our next door neighbor and wonderful to work with. One class.
And maybe Mr.
Science class.
Wait, at what,
Mr. Duvall will definitely be invited.
what time?
But of course, school's
Yeah,
out.
What?
Noon.
Noon, okay.
Right, yeah, midday.
Be careful because, in the afternoon. Redwood and all,
Well,
that-
but
it's a traffic nightmare, you get be there.
It is
30
summer.
minutes.
it is, summer,
Oh, you're right.
but there still is activity,
There's
so
a summer school, yeah, super cool summer schools.
you bet. So, yeah, we'll definitely communicate with them and do our best to stay out of the way of their operations. But I think it should work out. But anyway, let's mark our calendars and we'll have another celebration, and not only of the completion of the state-of-the-art pump station facility, but the completion of all that we were required to do under the state board order, or state region board order. So, something to celebrate and look forward to it. And that's it.
It's not only, you're gonna go before the cease and desist committee. What happens? That should impact on it. Probably the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure what cease and desist committee.
Well, the cease and desist order, are they gonna, hey, we finished everything on our.
Maybe we should invite them to the party.
Well, oh, certainly. They actually gave us an email. I saved it, that they believe it's time to rescind the cease and desist order. It was over a year ago.
Yeah. We're clear out of that.
It was in March.
Well, wait a minute. I thought you said we weren't quite out of it a year ago. We were about to be out of it. We're not out of it.
I received an email from the regional water board staff that I quoted in my report to BACWA, which says it appears that you've completed, the requirements of the cease and desist order. We may be ready to rescind it.
Oh, maybe ready, okay, no.
But they haven't rescinded it.
No,
Right, so invite the party.
That may be as good as we get.
Thank you, Chief. Verbal report by board members, any requests for future items?
I have nothing.
Nothing here.
Okay.
Well, I want to say something about septic. Steve and I had a quick conversation. This is the second incident, these are both neighbors. Have had septic tanks leaking for years. It's not our job, it's the county. So I want to know, would it be okay if I called up the county and asked them, what is your program? I mean, it's
On what?
bad.
Say it
Septic,
again.
septic tanks. That, and then this one neighbor got charged from us, even though they didn't have a septic tank.
He
That
has.
was that was on the,
Even though he has it.
yeah, but he was being charged by
Right,
us.
Right,
So there's all this weirdness. So I think I should just talk to Katie.
okay, I don't understand. What? Okay. Is this about the fellow that we're gonna give to discuss whether?
Kind of, but not really. I'm just wondering,
Are you wondering for more?
yes.
Okay,
Like
that's the question.
thousands,
So why don't we have management inquire? Is that? You can do it. Who's on septic in our district? That would be an interesting question, I guess.
Oh, well, we know the answer.
We do, okay.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we have a contact and we introduced ourselves a while back this year, just to confirm the right contact there. Our ordinance is pretty clear. That if you're within a certain distance of the sewer system, you don't have a choice when you remodel your building, you have to connect to the sewer. And,
Just like the lateral.
yeah, it's in.
And you have to put a lateral at the same time too.
It's in the sanitary district code, I believe, and so it's something we rely on if it comes up. But we have contacts. I've got my senior engineers in touch with Public Department of Public Works County for those areas that are in the county's program. All septic systems in the county, even if it's in this town as Fairfax or anywhere else, are regulated by that group. And so not long ago, we reached out to them to make sure we had the right contact people so that they were aware of our ordinance, and they are. And so they're when there are buildings proposals before the planning division,
Yeah.
they know to contact us and where our jurisdiction is with vis-a-vis the county. So it is something that we're aware of, and it doesn't happen a lot. There's not a large
Oh, my
volume,
God.
not a large volume of turnover.
Yeah. Okay,
But there are septic systems in our district, and no question, and a lot of them may be up in Fairfax or unincorporated Fairfax. But even, even along the border with San Rafael, I think there's a couple of septic systems up there, in the hills. So as they come up, we do have a mechanism, we do have contacts, we've got the county's Department of Public Works to be able to figure out, what's the best fit. If it's a certain distance beyond our sewer, if it's over, forget the number.
400 feet, there's
Something like that, then, it may not get triggered, and we don't necessarily, pursue, go beyond what the order.
so we call the county, there's a leak.
Yeah, and also county public health, environmental health department gets involved with any kind of spill. If it's from our system, then, and if it's over a certain threshold and it goes to surface water, we do work directly with the county health, as well as the water board to do sampling from the sewer system.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's really those two county departments, the county department of public work that oversees the septic permitting and, the evaluation that they have to be, that they meet their requirements. And then, county public health, if there's a problem with overflowing septic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to consent calendar. Now there's listed on this item, so we continue with one motion. Anybody like to remove anything from the consent calendar? We've already done E. Hearing none.
I move for consent to approve the consent calendar, numbers A through D.
It's up, motion and a second. Ready for the discussion? One favor?
Aye.
There, okay. So let's move on to 10, consideration of accepting the district's draft fiscal year 23-24 budget. That is item 10.
Well, it's that time of the year. Look at a draft budget. And, this year's draft budget has a little bit of a different look. Want to, credit for Alicia and Corey Spray for putting this together, and with a goal toward qualifying the considerations of the DFOA budget award. And so this was begun a year ago. It's getting refined. That's one aspect of it, but gives it its different. I want to call that out and recognize that effort, which is, we used to have a thinner budget document. It's gotten a little thicker. But it has things in there like performance metrics for referencing our strategic and business planning and some other aspects. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jeff to give you an overview of this year's draft budget highlights.
Great, thanks, Steve. So as Steve mentioned, similar to last year's format, in the goal of being eligible to receive the GFOA Distinguished Budget Award. The first thing I'd like to, and I'll do kind of a high level review given the hour, but the first thing I'd like to review is the message from the general manager, which has been board packet pages number 264 to 265. And this, of course, is provides just an overview of the budget and the financial highlights, which is our annual budget is 48.8 million. Our operating revenue increased by 5.5%, and expenditures increased by approximately 1% from the fiscal year 23 projected results. There's a commitment in this year's budget to fund the lateral replacement grant and loan programs again in the amount of $600,000. And then I'd really like to highlight the major district achievements from fiscal year 23 on the second page of the message from the general manager. The district received first place from the California Water Environmental Association for small collection system. Can we get some more mileage out of that? We've also incorporated new photo ionization for odor scrubbers at pump stations to reduce or eliminate the emission of foul odors in public settings. And we've been given an upgraded credit standing from Fitch from AA- to AA. So among other major district achievements for the year. So these are highlighted in the message from the general manager. As Steve mentioned, there is a new section called strategic plan, which is an element that's required to be incorporated into the district budget. It's on page 6 of the budget board packet 268 and 269. This inclusion of this reference to our strategic plan, our mission, and our core values will make the district's budget eligible for the GFOA award. So we're going to be submitting the adopted budget when that passes, hopefully in June. And the next thing I'd like to point out is on page 9 of the budget, board packet number 271. Corey, does a lot of work on this budget, and all of the tables and the charts and the graphs are all produced by him. This one I thought was kind of fun. It's just on table 3, the district service area top 10 ratepayers, which is included in our annual budget every year. He did a nice little summary here, a subtotal of the top 10 ratepayers. So we collect about $4 million from those 10 ratepayers, and which is about exactly 8.73% of our total budgeted sewer service charges for the year that we collect from those top 10 ratepayers. So it'd be nice to these people. That's all.
The rule of thumb that the rating agencies like is that it's low,
Mm,
below 10%.
below 10%.
Good.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Thanks for pointing out. Tom.
Diversification.
What's that?
Yeah.
Diversification.
Yeah,
You don't want to get all your money.
Right.
60%.
May I make a note on something like, sorry, from the very beginning?
Yeah.
May 27th, 2024.
May 27, 2024. Yes.
Yeah,
Happy birthday.
125.
That's right.
We should have a little soiree.
And we would. That's actually on, we're gearing up for the 125th birthday.
Yeah. Next year.
Yeah.
Next year.
We'll have, I'm thinking, that might be a good time to welcome the community to our new
Yeah.
facility.
Mhm,
That might be a very good time.
mhm,
In a more official way.
mhm.
Official ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll bring the scissors.
All right.
All right.
You have some big ones?
Yeah.
And don't forget, we are turning 124 next week, or a week and a half,
Yes, that's
We have a
right.
birthday party.
We have a
next
birthday.
Way before next May. That's okay.
week. Well, at any rate, it's an excuse to invite people there.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for that note, Doug. So another section of the budget I'd like to bring the board's attention to is on page 28 of the budget, board packet page number 290. This is just the financial summary. Again, our annual budget, 40.8 million. Thank you. And there's a nice table here, table 8 on the following page. A summary of expenditures and revenues, which is easy to refer to. And then lastly, our 5-year forecast, which is on page 88, budget packet number 350. And Corey again done a nice job in itemizing the forecast assumptions, which is as Tom has pointed out, is very important when you're looking at financials to understand the assumptions. Embedded in those.
Yours are more reliable than the market return.
No, ours are, well, I think the explanation of assumptions is the important point here. Not, it's not just a number, it's a number based on, a certain narrative. And again, Corey has provided not just the number, but also the narrative. So with that, we do have an $11.9 million CIP budget forecast for the coming year, and I'll turn that over to Steve to talk a little bit about, with one last note to the board, which is to remind them that we invite any and all comments on the draft budget, tonight or anytime really in advance of the next board meeting, when we hope to present the final budget for the board. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Felicia. It's great. And if you start the capital improvement program section, page 64, which is board packet 326. And we're dividing the capital program in the same type of categories. We're dropping engineering studies, the capital. The IMP was very capital focused, and so we did categorize it as capital budget item, but we're moving away from that and have engineering studies under engineering budget going forward. So I just want to clarify that thing. But otherwise, very much similar approach. We have the gravity sewer projects, pump station project, force main projects, and then we have other capital projects which we include, the Anderson work, or formerly the Larkspur Landing cleanup, those type of capital projects. And then we have the lateral replacement program for grants and loans, and then we have fixed asset purchases, which we just talked about, the combination vehicle that we just delivered here for the end of this year. We budgeted that a year ago, and it takes a lot of time for these special vehicles to be ordered and built, delivered, and tested. So highlights, we did look at a 10-year approach this time. Corey and I worked together. I've been doing 5-year plans up to last year, and so, you know, in an effort to qualify for the budget award, but also to forecast out a little bit more on where we might be 9 or 10 years, went through that exercise and tethered the amounts to the sewer rate study assumptions from 2019. You know, because we actually forecast out capital needs back at that time and and then generated the revenue and the plan, you know, through sewer rates, sewer service charges to support that. So the 10-year plan is shown on page 70, the photo packet 332, and on to 333. Basically take some of the IAMP recommendations and the pace of spending that's assumed the sewer rate study from 2019 and sends it on out. And we have an assumption that I have to acknowledge, you know, in terms of sewer rate revenues. You know, the last year is the 5th year. I'm sorry, next year is the 5th year of our sewer rates, and then you have to make an assumption on sewer rate increases going out. So we use the same assumption as CMSA, which is 4% increase for 2 years, and then 3.5% increase for the next 3 years. Just so you know, you have to make assumptions that isn't, you know, any decision that's been made, but it's an assumption going forward for funding the capital programs. So I want to give you that 10-year context, and you know, we define these general gravity sewer projects. There's some specific pump station work we anticipate, and even some force main work. You know, we have that old line that crosses from Riviera Circle, you know, has some rubber in it, you know, so it goes along the bank and then from the Quarter Creek. We did a condition assessment of that line. It's good for now, but we're gonna keep an eye on that. And it was 80 years old. It's laid and well, we had it assessed, you know, a year and a half ago. So we were confident it's doing fine. But it's old, you know, it was laid in the early 60s. That 80?
It says 80. Well, I'm looking at the project 956. Woodland Capacity.
Oh, yeah, that's a different one.
Okay.
Yeah, different one. So, but yeah, you are looking at some of these capital project sheets. And so in the upcoming year, and this is what we've been doing for several years now in the budget. We summarize capital project sheets. To give you a little more specific detail on what's the plan. Cross check that to the 10-year. Well, really, you can look at the 10-year. Let's look at the budget and projected for the budget for 24, and that's, you know, we prioritize those projects and their description earlier in the project sheet.
I think those are going to be.
So overall, let's see. Again, we have a focus on gravity sewer project, about 5.5 million. Pump station projects. I think this is going to increase. I just got a cost estimate for what we're going out to bid with, and it increases by $500,000 based on an updated engineer's estimate. It's a draft budget. So, you know, I'm going to take the latest information and give it to you the final. Force main, we don't have anything except some work related to smaller pump stations that we should probably take credit for. A couple $100,000 worth of work, but it's in the other pump station project. But I want to point out on other capital projects, we do have the site improvements planned for the coming year, in addition to the remodel of 1111 Anderson. And we do want to cite an on-site generator. Make sure that our server is always running in case of a power outage. Have that at the Kerner building now, and so the 1111 Anderson building doesn't have a generator, so it has the ability to add one. And so we've done a lot of the design work already on that. So that's part of this $1.64 million budget for paving, security fencing, landscaping, you know, for preparation of the site for staff use, in addition to a backup generator. So that's included in that. And in terms of capital equipment, our lateral program continued at the same pace, more or less. And then in terms of capital equipment, we did not obtain the broader truck. We got your permission to, but there was delays. I think the company went under or something like that. But we had good news that we found the same equipment for a lot less funding, so we're carrying forward this proposed funding, but not at the same level. It's brief about $100,000. Good news. We'll probably get it for a better price. We at the same time, the repair crews truck is a 2005 truck, and it really has reached a point where we're either going to have major repairs or just for the new truck. So we're recommending a new truck at $350,000, recommending 2 camera systems, and then we are recommending an $80,000 portable bypass pump. So this is our O&M manager has indicated this would be good to have for doing maintenance, keep the pump station running while we take with a portable system rather than renting it, just having one on hand. We do this often enough where it makes sense for us to purchase one and not rent it. This gives us emergency bypass ability as well as routine maintenance. And so that's when I touched on some of those highlights. These are different, when we do the fixed assets, that's out of the norm, and want the board to be aware of those and ask questions. But we should really appreciate recognizing your support for the improvements in the fleet in the last 3 or 4 years. It's gone a long way, and it helps with our high performance culture, it's having excellent equipment, and our staff appreciate that. It's that extra motivation, it's being able to work with state-of-the-art equipment. So thank you, and I think that's my highlight on capital. Giving it a little extra elbow grease this year. And I want to point out, I actually had spoken with the board member Megs about this year. You mentioned it takes over $11 million, right? Really, our steady state is more like 9 million. So we're dipping in a little bit this year. We have some ambitious gravity sewer work. We really want to catch up with a few issues we've identified, and we have the capital reserve build up, right? Corey, you have ambitious capital reserve goals. We have a $6.1 million capital reserve fully funded right now. So we have the ability to dip into it a little bit this year if we meet the pace of planning, which is hard to do, as you know. Okay, it's hard to meet the capital pace. We fell behind a little bit this fiscal year, so that gives us the ability to be able to fund a more ambitious program in the coming year. So I'm asking the board to trust us staff to maybe dip into the reserve slightly if we meet our goals, but my long-term plan has us tapering down the commitment so that we meet the goal of pay as you go as a capital program.
If we never dip into the reserve, it's too high. And so we should use it, and go up and down with it and have a plan to get out of the hole, not plan down.
Right.
Dip into it now and then. That's just like an operating reserve. Anyway, now we do have to decide on.
So I come across
We're
back at 348 and 349.
The 2 blank pages?
Yes,
Yeah.
so it wasn't hard reading.
Well,
I assume that was because we had
that
the
was a
presentation.
presentation, yes.
Makes perfect sense.
And I think we've satisfied page 349, our OPEB funding plan. We received direction
Yep.
from the board.
That's right.
Plus 280.
280 a year, yeah, maybe none of that.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll do our best to put something together for the
And the,
prior page.
and the pension plan is to continue our payment scheme,
Oh, of course.
and maybe do we want to put in this document considerations of where to invest the money. We don't need to do.
We could do, yeah. I'll come up with something.
And then, our reserve policy is to fund, by the way, either the 5 or 10 year CIP. Remember, that's what it's written. So is it, which one did you pick?
I think Corey's using the 5-year, but it's the 10-year helps the predictive 5-year.
And I think a lot of sewer districts use a 10-year CIP. CMSA does. They do a 10-year. And that's a good idea. And admittedly, the long years
We're gonna change it.
they're placeholders.
Yeah, that's right.
Any comments or questions on the budget? It's a neat doc. Lots of information.
Like the monthly report, it reads, it's the narrative.
Yeah.
So,
What I would recommend is, I noticed a couple of typos and things like that,
yes,
and maybe if anybody has any comments, submit them to staff,
yes, please.
Yes.
and all comments are welcome.
Yes, please.
Yeah, is there any date we recommend receiving?
It would be great to get them before the end of the month of May, if at all possible. That would give us time then to, make any necessary adjustments and.
I didn't have anything substantial. Okay, so what do we do with this one? Accept the draft and provide direction to staff, so. Do we need a motion for that?
No, I don't.
Provide direction to staff is if you have.
We need a motion to accept.
I think we typically do accept the draft and then we approve it.
Okay, I need a motion.
I move that we accept the draft.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you very much, it's great talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corey.
Okay, let's move on to. Oh, yeah, we're not gonna do another. Well, there it is.
Okay. We did have a spill. But it was an interesting, I don't know if I'll turn this over to Paul, but we learned something about, we may have had, we're still figuring out what this huge amount of gravel that ended up in a large diameter line along Colinas Avenue, which is the border between Ross and San and Cell Phone. So it was a minor spill, but 280 gallons of some, they got to the storm drain. And yeah, it was a bit mysterious, we think that it might be a combination of things, construction in the area. So we do use the back on, to pull out gravel, or large back on, or if it was down, we had to borrow back on.
Yeah.
Which, but we're working on figuring out the source of that. Very unusual to have a large diameter line have spills.
Well, couldn't it come from somewhere during the seminary?
Yeah, I mean, that area is up to me, I think, and so we're looking at construction projects, paving projects would be a source of gravel.
Did you ask on Congress?
We've talked to everybody.
Yeah, we're still doing a lot of CCTV work in that area. We're still trying to follow up on it a little bit. But it was a 10-inch line, which, like I said, is highly unusual for them to plug up, but it has somewhat of a sag, but we pulled about 2 yards at least of gravel out of there. It was a full back Bobcat bucket, and then buckets and buckets that night that we were out there as well. So we fixed one small void in a manhole, but CCTV's working their way up into the valley there to see what we can find, because it is a bigger line, you can travel a lot farther. But like Steve said, luckily it was a minor spill, but it still was a spill nonetheless. So
We'll get to the bottom of it, one of the speculations is it's at the tail end of the big wet season. Was this just an accumulation?
Well, you gotta find out who's missing their driveway.
yeah.
Was it some accumulation of just little bits of debris, in the system that just got moved down into the flatter area, the bigger, diameter sewer. So, something we'll keep an eye out on. I think our surveillance of larger diameter lines is going to increase here and there, and increase the frequency of our mains and stuff. We have a big focus on the smaller diameter lines in our system, which are 70% of our systems. But overall, metrics are looking good, keeping up with our commitments, and some interesting high points. And we even, Marin Municipal Water District asked if we might be able to help them with something. It ended up being it ended up being, we're worried about losing our equipment in these big tunnels out in the water system. So I think we're gonna pass on that. But we're keeping up on a reasonable recycled water use, you know, it's comparable to past years, but our water use overall is a lot higher. Because we're just really getting on top of our preventive work. And I think it's translating to a good overflow rate, because here we are, we got a month and a half to go in the fiscal year, and we're sitting at 7 spills, and we've never been under 10. So it's a knock on wood. We're doing something right. I think the preventive work is that all leading is having an impact. And our commitment to a high performing culture. Recognized by CWA in the collection system of the year award. Anyway, Paul, any highlights you want to share?
Yeah, I'll be quick with it. I know we've covered a lot this evening. Like Steve said, pump station 14, we've been doing a lot of work there, and the last major piece of it was the ATS, which is automatic transfer switch. It switches between PG&E, backup power, and vice versa in case of an emergency. So it takes a lot of coordination with contractors. We had to work with PG&E to do a full station shutdown. We had to wire in a generator, run one pump while we're in there pulling out the major electrical components to replace it all. But everybody worked together, went smooth. So that was the last piece, like Steve said. So we're ready to hopefully cut the ribbon over there at 14 as well. It's operating well and everything's good. So that was the no odors. It was the last major hurdle there was up at that pump station. I think we have a couple little punch list items, but we're pretty much done there. So that's really good.
You know, that's worth pointing out, you know, that our crews are very involved in these pump station projects. Yes, we go out to bid. Yes, we get the contractor. They're responsible for a lot. But without the close coordination with our crews, it doesn't work, you know, and so it's really a team effort.
Yeah, no, they've been doing really well. Under line maintenance here, this was a multi crew finding, which was really good. Inspections was out doing USAs and found a heavy log of debris in one of the manholes. They called line maintenance out right away. They came and cleared the obstruction. They found a nice big hole in the bottom of the channel in the manhole, which was catching debris and building up. Repair came out the same day, fixed the channel, got it back and flowing smoothly. And it was just an overall really good example of the teamwork from interdepartmental, from inspections to flushing to repair to CCT. You know, it all went really smooth and it was a great find. It was definitely going to be another SSO. And we were lucky enough to pop that manhole that day.
Where was that? Where's
this?
L168?
It's in Larkspur. Sorry, I can give you
Okay.
the street, but yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah.
I would, after you reported last month about the, where you could see into the main
through the
by
sidewalk?
Escal.
Yeah.
I drove right by and I saw the new patch of concrete, so I knew right where you're talking about.
Great. I'll try to get the streets in here. Oh, it was off of oh, we didn't put that in. Yeah, no, that's the next one. Yeah, that was another one in Larkspur that we actually eliminated a line that had been in our system for a long time, no laterals on it, broken up, rod holes, and it really wasn't servicing anything. So we removed the rod hole, abandoned the line, and took 150 feet of pipe out of our system that wasn't even needed.
Well, you know, the Larkspur is new to the, relatively new to the system, right?
Yeah, well, we find a lot of old abandoned lines and stuff, so it's progress moving forward. We don't need it, and let's I&I in gravel, rock, you know, so we're really trying to minimize our SSOs by removing old and outdated stuff, pipes that we're not using anymore. And then condition assessment, again, failing laterals. So far, we have 43 that have been sent out for notice to comply. 17 have been replaced completely with another 4 active permits. So we're about 50% on compliance so far. which is really good. Staff have been working, front office staff have been administrative, been working, communicating. We've been out re-dye testing the CCTV, confirming, working with homeowners, any issues they may be having or thoughts that it may not be them. So we've been spending a good amount of time.
How do we discover 43?
So as we're doing CCTV work, in the past, a lot of these grade 5s in the system were being watched or reviewed to see if they were worsening. And now, as we're going down the line, if we see anything grade 3, grade 4, grade 5 that's close to the lateral or their Y, we automatically locate it with the camera in the street, and then we survey, see what houses are there, and start knocking on doors and start doing dye testing right then and there. So we're there already. Why we even say, oh yeah, we have a problem, and then wait 2 years to come back to it. So as we're finding these voids, we're actually actively.
Dye testing and housework.
So we have tablets. We just knock on the door, ask them to flush it down the toilet. When the camera's already set up on the void, here comes the color. Comes washing right down to our pipe, and we say, yep, it's your house. If not, we can say, oh, it popped out down there. That's you down there. Okay, that's not you. We'll go to
The dye
the.
test, you have to determine house.
Yes.
It doesn't really say anything about, you've already known, you already discovered the laterals there.
Yes, but we gotta
You don't know
confirm.
where it came from.
Right.
Yeah, so then we work to confirm whose house it is, what's the issue, or because it gets tricky. We have combined laterals, we have some laterals with 3 houses who share the cost to repair the lateral, you know, so. Sometimes there's a good amount of digging that comes with it. If you guys like, I can send you a couple of the pictures of some of the notice to repairs that we sent out, if you guys are interested. Just so you can see what we're dealing with out there. John Vogel actually found a really good one today, actually, with a video. I'll send it over to you guys, and I mean, it's probably the size, basketball size hole in the pipe. There's quite a few, but we're really
The
working.
people receptive to the,
Yeah, a lot of people actually, I mean, nobody wants their line to back up on Thanksgiving or, you know, we have a lot of drop lines where there's only the crown of the pipe, like stuff's barely making it through. And then we've had a couple where it's mainly just roots. So we're doing that as a courtesy, say, you are gonna back up, it may back up into your house. And that's kind of a double-edged sword for us, because if they cut the roots out, where we, you know, if they plug up and they cut the roots out, it comes into our main and most likely it's gonna plug us up. So we're trying to work with the homeowners to let them know they have a heavy blockage, and to call a plumber out, and we'll come out and catch that roots as they come out. So we're trying to work with the homeowners to catch the debris before they block up, and therefore it's not sending it right into our system. So we're trying to work with that. Couple of them we've done, I mean, there was a 3-foot log of 4-inch roots. It just slid right out and came right into our 6-inch main.
Wow.
Which most definitely would have plugged us up. And that was up off of Pond Drive. So,
We just replaced those lights.
yeah,
This is great, you know, I just want to acknowledge that this is implementation of a business plan item that we had for several years to do, you know, code enforcement, you know, compliance. And recognize that the homeowners are responsible for the lateral connection. You know, and really, if that's not addressed, we'll have I&I problems or SSO risk. And so this is a methodical way of tying it to more real-time information. As we discover it, not forgetting it, and having a reference and having emails sent to people.
yeah, we do
Through
have
our
a,
CMMS and reminding ourselves, this is an issue, and to follow up on it and
Yeah.
work cooperatively with the homeowner.
and our system business analyst, Patrick, we have a automated tracking sheet. We put the address in, it'll say if they don't respond, it'll resend them a letter in 30 or every 60 days. Just so, you know, try to keep the communication going. Not everybody's always receptive, but we let them know we have a grant program and the lateral replacement, and there's funding. We're here to help, you know, but
Get a certificate of compliance.
you're good for 20 years. So a lot of people have been receptive to that because they don't know they have an issue, right? I mean, nobody knows until you know, so. It's been working out good. And then,
And I think this is kind of part of a 3-pronged approach, you know, the laterals, in-house repair, capital work. to prevent SSO.
Mhm.
Just these are
Well, I like-
problems waiting to happen.
I like that cooperation with the contractor. You know, hey, if you're gonna send something down, call us up and we'll take care of it too, you know.
Yeah, no charge.
Yeah,
Yeah, no charge.
because we have the baskets on all the flushers. It's really easy for them to, get out there and grab it and pull it right out of the system before it causes any more issues. So it's been good. And then the last note, we did a lot of capital work this year with Phil Benedetti, and we did a big sag analysis. So after they burst the pipe, a lot of it follows the trail of the old pipe. So sometimes there's little dips and sags. So what we do is right after they burst it, we send the camera down, we clean it, we fill it full of clean water. We send the camera down, we have a little measurement tool on the front. It tells us the depth of the sag and how long it is. And it's a good tool for us because it keeps the contractor work, make sure we're getting the most out of the money we're paying for the work. So the contractor's still on site, we let them know where the sags are, they can dig it up and repair it right then and there. And there's no remobilization or any of that. So we've been working with Phil and they were working up off of Rancheria Road in Kent Woodlands. We've done a couple lines out there. And they actually did find 7 sags and they've all been fixed already. And the contractor was receptive. They took care of them within a week. And
Is that a change order?
no,
No, because it's per contract, We have a certain, in our standard specification, we only tolerate a certain amount of sag in the new pipe.
yeah. So.
How do you pull out the sag?
They'll cut a pit in the road and they'll either lift up on it and try to rebed the pipe underneath and, one of them was actually just where they had bursted into the manhole. It was just kind of caught on a piece of concrete. So it chipped out the concrete, resealed it at the manhole. Some of it's simple, some of it they have to do a little extra work. But yeah, typically they just dig a small pit and kind of re-lift on that pipe, rebed underneath it. It's amazing work. They do good work.
And another great example of how O&M has to support capital. So it's not just in the pump stations, but in the gravity sewer project. We follow right up and, with our crews, they're very dedicated.
So that's all I got. If you guys have any questions on any of the other information in here, happy to answer.
No,
I think that report was fitting of the collection system of the year.
It's amazing how the few months of the winter. Effect on the total flow of the year. There were a high percentage in the very high flow.
Yep.
And so it really hits our percentages.
But we're still the collection system of the year.
Everybody's like, "We need to do it."
Thank you.